Hey everyone. It's not every day. Actually, it's a very rare exception to the rule where I'll actually come across an article in one of our establishment media outlets where I actually don't just recognize as someone that's trying to present a counter narrative and trying to at least be somewhat logically consistent and offer a counter to the kind of propaganda that's put forth by the collectivists, right? The big government lovers, the central planning types, the cronies, right? We're inundated with that kind of shit on a regular basis. And you see that in all the established media. But like I say, and like I've said in past videos, there are a few exceptions to the rule. And I always stand up and promote and will speak in the kindest sense towards those who were at least willing to challenge the dominant central planning narrative. Those people, like I say, I give kudos to you for trying, right? Although I recognize that because of your position, you're probably not quite willing to do, to throw all your weight behind and support actual true fundamental aspects of individual liberty. I get it, and I understand it. Derek Fildebrandt obviously is not one of those people. Derek Fildebrandt is saying, yeah, I'm just going to tell you the truth. I'm just going to give you my opinion. But not only am I going to give you an opinion, but I want to inspire you. I mean, how many times have you been inspired by political dialogue or a narrative presented from the people in the media? You know, you might agree with some of the things they say, but at most you're right? They're not inspiring anyone. I mean, when you read through this, and I'm going to, not only will you hear some great truth, some great objective reason, some great logic, but you're going to hear an inspirational message that people like myself, I've been trying to present this too, right? But I'm just glad that I have people outside of my very small sphere of influence that are doing it on the main stage. It's very important, and thank you, Derek, for doing so. Headline. And this is it's a special, Derek Fildebrandt special to National Post. Derek Fildebrandt, Mad Max was not just a candidate. His campaign was a revolution for Canadian conservatism. Let's get down into the meat of the article and read what Derek's got to say. On Saturday, Conservative Party of Canada members voted by the narrowest of margins, 50.95%, to make Andrew Scheer the party's new leader. Inches behind him, with 49.05% of the vote, was Maxime Bernier. Bernier led in every one of the first 12 ballots until support from other candidates pushed Scheer over the top of the 13th round. Scheer is a competent and good-natured man who deserves the chance to unite all Conservatives. We should be ready and willing to extend and accept an open hand of friendship. I mean, Derek's already shown he's a little more accepting of things than I am, because, at this stage of the game, I'm sorry, Derek, this is the only part that I'll probably disagree with you is, I'm not giving these fucks anything, right? No, they got to come to us first. I'm not giving them shit. If they want to give an inch, I'll give you back. Actually, you give me an inch, I'll give you back a foot. But you got to give the fucking inch first. And so far, I'm not seeing any inches being given by these fucks, especially the social conservatives. But anyways, like I said, forget that. That's probably the only negative part that I could point out in this article. And I get what you're doing. I'm not even trying to take anything from you. I understand. But for those of us who supported the man we called Mad Max, Bernier's loss was a heartbreaking disappointment. Yet his defeat need not be a loss. His campaign was unlike any other for high national office in the modern history of Canada. It was not a traditional campaign focused on his likableness or on minor ideological differences from other candidates, but rather one that proposed wholesale reform and sweeping policy changes. Max's campaign was not simply about a candidate, it was a movement to revolutionize Canadian conservatism. Now, actually, there's a couple parts in this. This is just me being in my particular self. But you know what? It will help. It will help every one of us by critiquing the points that I feel I need to critique. So don't hold it against me, right? But already here is reform. Because the Reformist Party, probably not the greatest word to use, Derek, there in that aspect. And it's not about Canadian conservatism. It's not about fucking conservatism. It's about freedom and liberty. If you make it about one side of the political spectrum, well, you're only going to appeal to that one side of the political spectrum. The fucking thing about libertarianism is it has an appeal to everyone that wants and appreciates individual freedom and liberty, right? So people from all sides or both sides of the political aisle and all parts of the political spectrum, everywhere in between, right? So that's okay, that's it. I'm done with my critiques at this point, right? Let's get on to the more positive aspects of it. That movement can broadly be described as liberty conservatism. Max fused traditional conservatism, patriotism, respect for civil and family institutions, a strong national defense and fiscal responsibility with an aggressive, no-holds-barred libertarianism that would end conservative inconsistency on issues like corporate welfare, supply management, equalization, micro tax cuts, and federal overreach into areas of provincial jurisdictions. So yeah, and like I say, and I get why, because it seems to be the conservatives that seem to, most of the time, seem to be the most bold, right? The most willing to accept, a narrative that doesn't necessarily suit their own. And that's the crazy part, really. I'm having such a hard time trying to discern all this stuff, really, when it comes down to it, between the difference between being classically liberal or what we, I guess, are fucking today, modern libertarians and conservatives. It seems so weird. In reality, like I say, the political landscape has been fucked around and messed around and pushed around so much that I guess this is where we're at, where nobody actually understands where their alliances should rely. And it shouldn't be from any political gang or political master, right? It should be just all about human fucking freedom and individual liberty and economic prosperity, right? Fuck the, like I say, but politics is always going to play the game, right? In this world we live in, unfortunately, we got to play the game of politics because that's the only game in town. That's the only game in town is politics. How else are you going to change anything other than through the political realm? Well, intellectual, philosophical, that happens, but like I say, and those of us that are trying, but you got to go where there's this, right? If you're standing in the back of the room with a group of 10 people listening to you, you probably sound pretty good back there. And all the people listening to you, all 10 people will be like, yeah, man, right on. The main thing, though, is try to get up on the main stage and get the largest percentage of the population hearing you, right? That's really what it comes down to. Now, the conservatives seem to be much more willing to take that on. That's one thing I will agree with Derek in this particular article is he's absolutely right in that regard. It's the conservatives at this stage of the game, but is it because they've been put at the back of the bus so that they feel emboldened to try to do something different? I don't know, like I say, but it is, and he is not lying in that regard. He's not even being the slightest bit misrepresentative of the truth in that regard. It does seem in this modern day, in this modern era, that are the conservatives that Canadians that consider themselves libertarians or even classically liberal seem to fucking be aligning with now. I don't know why that is. Like I say, it's because, well, yeah, we do. Because the goalpost has moved around so much that now the conservatives are counterculture. Now the conservatives are all about liberal liberties, right? Like I say, we live in the George Orwellian world, and Derek recognized that reality, and he's just running with the fact that, hey, this is the reality that I see. So I understand what he's going. Like I say, I like to push back a little bit. I have to. That's just what I do, right? I'm pushing back on the fact that it's all about conservatives because in reality, you can't, if you paint it all about conservatism, you're leaving out a huge portion of the population that actually align with you very much as far as philosophy and ideology and freedom and liberty is all about. So, let's stop trying to do that divide and conquer thing. Right? Let's just be honest, objective in the reality that, yes, it's predominantly the party that lost power that's now trying to seek a way and a means to get back into gaining power, right? So the conservatives now seem to be more willing to accept and adopt libertarian principles and values. But it does not mean that the conservatives are the only ones, right? Because libertarians are all about, like I say, we get called liberals and we get called conservatives, because really what a libertarian is all about is where's all the freedom aspects of conservatism? I like all those. Where's all the freedom aspects of liberalism? I like all those. And we take the good from there, took the good from there, and mash them all together, and that's what libertarianism really represents. In the political sense, right? In the philosophical sense, it means, yes, let's just get rid of governments and central planners altogether. I don't believe in rulers or masters. But in the political sense, we're like, let's just expand freedoms in the political or the social sphere and the economic sphere. So the lefties like their, right? The lefties like their social, and the righties like their economic sphere. I'm saying, and the libertarians are saying, let's put them all together and let's expand liberty to every individual from both sides of the sphere for the entire sphere. Let's put it all together, right? Instead of two halves, let's make it a whole and make priorities of liberty for everybody. Not just one side, not just one team, not just the other, for everybody. It's a get off my lawn conservatism that believes that the government's power should be sharply restricted from intruding into our wallets, our televisions, CRTC and the CBC, our dinner tables, our speech, and our bedrooms, right? Because that's what libertarians are all about. But like I said, just in this is the thing with Derek. You need to understand, Derek, a lot of these things you're putting forth, classical liberals, genuine liberals, limited government liberals, they'll agree with you in this aspect. So don't always paint this as just, but I get it, this is the party he's running. That's the problem when you choose a gang, right? And no offense to you, Derek, I get it, and I'm totally on board with you here. Don't think I'm insulting you or going against anything you're saying in that aspect. I get what you're doing. I'm just saying is, if you pick Team A over Team B, right, then you're going to have to constantly I'm not saying that's the way it is, but the population at large are going to say, well, he's on Team A. Libertarians like, I'm on no team. I have no tribe. I'm all about freedom and liberty. Meet me here. I'm right here in the center. All you people from both sides of the political spectrum, I'm right here in the middle waiting for you all to catch the fuck up. That's what we're really all about, right? And the conservatives, yeah, they're much more closer. The liberals seem to be at this stage of the game. They're much further away from bringing individual liberty. And if you look through classical liberal literature and history, you realize that, well, they should be much closer, but they're not. But like I say, big government and socialism have taken over their mentality, right? Their entitlement mentality has completely destroyed their willingness to accept and embrace what their actual genuine philosophy of liberalism used to entail, used to mean, right? The liberty conservative movement broke all the molds of traditional Laurentian-dominated consensus politics. It was young, it was online, and it was aggressive. It took on sacred cows that no major national candidate had been willing to take seriously about or talk seriously about before. So true, Derek, so true. When have you ever heard of them? Everyone always tries to straddle that fine line of, we don't want to rock the boat too much. Maxime was the first one that said, yeah, fuck rocking the boat. How else you going to wake anyone up? If you just shake it slightly, nobody's ever going to be wakened from their fucking indoctrinated slumber. Maxime's like, no, we need to rock this boat hard. We need to wake these people up. Conservatives decided, keep them kind of a little bit asleep. Nudge them a little bit, but let them sleep. Let them stay in their slumber. Yeah. Just like Derek, I say, no. Let's rock that boat before we all drown. Right? Because it's sinking, and it's sinking pretty fast. It also broke down the centuries-long solitudes of French and English conservatism. Bernier often called the Albertan from Quebec one Alberta with 53% of the vote. This makes Max the first native francophone to win Alberta in a major contest since Sir Wilfrid Laurier, and only the second in 150 years of Confederation. Many Albertans have an ingrained suspicion of Quebec politics, in brackets, with good cause. But Max overcame these concerns by speaking to the heart of our foundational values. He won every riding in Calgary, more than half of those in Edmonton, and a large number in rural constituencies. I will leave to the pundits the task of analyzing why Max didn't get the 0.96% more support he needed to win. But Max's supporters should know that he handled himself with dignity and strength in defeat. Addressing the core campaign team after the vote, many with tears welling in their eyes, Max said that he would not change a single thing about the campaign. He would not have compromised his principles. He would not have changed anything in his platform, even in the face of well-organized resistance from special interest groups. He said he would do everything he could to support Scheer and unite the party, but also noted that our campaign was more than a book of promises. It was a movement. Stick to your principle, Max. Stick to your principles. As I write this article on a plane flying home to Alberta, it is with a heavy heart and a cheap glass of wine on my tray table. But I am proud of the man that I call my friend, and of the thousands of young, dynamic, liberty conservatives who are now a national force and who I know will someday reshape Canada. That's one part we're 100% we're in agreement there. The young conservatives of today will definitely play a major and vital role in shaping the political and economic landscape of Canada. But of course, you need others, right? It can't just be about one side because, well, if you create a divide where it's one side against the other, well, you'll always be stuck in that paradigm forever. And usually when it comes to politics, it's not a race to the top. It's usually a race to the lowest common denominator. And that's the kind of race, that's the kind of competition that people like myself, we don't actively participate in, and I don't promote, and I sure as hell don't support. So in reality, like I keep saying, libertarians are basically the ones out there that can appeal to everybody because we're not all about teams. And Derek's saying he's not so much about the team, but he has a preference for one particular team because he realized that one team is actually out in front and winning the battle for the minds of the masses. And on that side, in that regard, I completely agree. The Liberals, well, they're winning over a lot of minds, but only by offering them freebies and handouts. But have you really affected them properly? I mean, just like your kids, if you offered your kids to keep giving them everything they wanted anytime they wanted it, yeah, they'll probably still support you. But what have you done to them? What's the long-term consequences and effect of doing so? The real individual liberty-loving, small government conservatives, and there are some, I guess, right? They are on board and aligned with libertarians. But in reality, I don't know. I think it's mostly it's a competition thing. The conservatives just want to kick the liberals' ass for the most part. And I understand that. And we benefit if they do. In that regard. I don't often quote Bible verses, but I shared one with Max before I boarded the plane home on Sunday afternoon. From 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 8, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Our movement has achieved a revolution of Canadian conservatism and is still young. Derek Fildebrandt is the Wild Rose Shadow Minister of Finance and Alberta MLA for Strathmore Brooks. Excellent, Derek. Like I say, if we had even just a few other people that were contributing to the National Post that presented an article with a narrative and dialogue as such, yeah, the push and the fight for liberty, I think, would be a little bit further ahead than we are at this stage of the game. Unfortunately, it's those of us, right, in the alternative space. We're the ones most invigorated. We're the ones most emboldened to speak out, but our voices, our voices don't get to expand nearly as much as those that are presented and put forth by the established media outlets. But I'm glad, like I say, I'm very glad that Derek here is willing to stand up and step up the plate. It's a Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.